I'm Minnie. It was an electrifying moment in the conference room. The investors sat in their heavy leather chairs, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. The CEO, Victor, stood at the podium, his face ashen, his hand still raised mid-air, pointing at the screen. The screen that now displayed damning evidence of his fraud, shattering his carefully crafted lies. It all started with a simple promise. Our team of 27 had worked tirelessly for 3 months, pulling 14-hour days. We sacrificed so much. I was raised in a small-town family. My parents were hard-working folks. My father was a mechanic, always hands-on and detail-oriented, and my mother was a schoolteacher, kind-hearted but firm. They instilled in me the values of integrity and hard work. I missed my little brother's school play, a huge event for our close-knit family. We were all counting on the $8,000 bonus from the big launch. For me, it was the key to finally paying off my college loans that had been hanging over me like a dark cloud. For others, it was the difference between keeping a roof over their heads or facing eviction. Then, Victor sent an email. Due to unforeseen market shifts, all performance payouts are delayed indefinitely. But just a day later, I saw his post on social media. A picture of a magnificent mansion in Malibu, with the caption, "Hard work pays off. My dream home is finally mine." I was furious. I stood up to him, calmly asking about the timeline. His response? "Be grateful you have a job." Those words stung like 1,000 needles. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm the type who sits in the back of meetings, quietly analyzing data. I'm the senior data analyst at the company. Most people think my job is just about staring at spreadsheets and making charts, but I see the stories behind the numbers. I've been with the company for 3 years, and I know its rhythm better than anyone. I've noticed how much we spend on office supplies, how the electricity bill fluctuates with the seasons, and exactly how much revenue the big launch generated. We had exceeded our targets, yet the company account seemed empty. My friend Leo, who had a young son with medical issues, was counting on that bonus to cover his son's treatment. He looked so tired, with dark circles under his eyes, as he ate a cheap sandwich from the vending machine, trying to save every penny. When I told him what Victor said, he let out a bitter laugh. Grateful? I'm grateful I can't afford to take my son to the specialist. I knew then that I had to do something. For the next few weeks, I became the model employee. I arrived at the office before the sun came up and left after it had set. Every morning, I brought Victor his favorite espresso, black with a splash of cinnamon. I smiled when he made jokes about trimming the fat during our weekly meetings. But at night, when the office was silent and the cleaners had left, I started my real work. I knew Victor was too smart to steal directly. So, I started looking for where the profit had gone. Using my skills as a data analyst, I followed the money trail. I first checked the obvious expenses like travel and client dinners, but they were all within the normal range. Then I dug into the operational expenses folder. This is where companies often hide things. There, I found a new category called Strategic Market Insights paid to a vague vendor named Pinnacle Research Group. The payments were huge, $15,000 on October 5th, $22,500 on October 18th, and $40,000 on October 31st. When I looked into the vendor, there was no contact name, just a P.O. box in Nevada. I knew something was off. I started cross-referencing the dates of these payments with Victor's business trips. On October 5th, while his calendar said he was in a client meeting in Chicago, I found that he had used the company credit card to pay for a luxury suite at a beachfront resort in Malibu. I kept digging. I found an Instagram photo of his new Malibu mansion. In the reflection of the glass door, I noticed a street sign. After a lot of image editing, I found out it was Ocean View Drive. I accessed public records and found that the house was owned by a trust called Starlight Trust. At first, I thought I'd hit a dead end, as it was hard to trace the owner of a trust. But then, in the mortgage documents, I saw Victor's signature as the manager of Starlight Trust. I also totaled up the payments to Pinnacle Research Group in the last 3 months. The total, $216,000, was exactly the same as the down payment for the mansion. He had funneled the company's money through the fake research vendor to buy his dream home while telling us to be grateful for our jobs. The investor meeting was approaching, and it was the perfect opportunity to expose him. I waited until the right moment. When Victor was in the middle of his presentation, spinning his web of lies about strategic reinvestments, I pressed a key on the control panel. The slide changed from his fancy bar chart to a split-screen image. On the left was the invoice for $216,000 to Pinnacle Research Group, and on the right was the public deed for the Malibu mansion, with Victor's signature clearly visible. The room went silent. Victor's face turned white as a sheet. He stammered, trying to explain it away as a glitch, but it was too late. I calmly explained that the research budget had gone to buy his mansion, not for client acquisition. I had also emailed all the evidence to the board members 5 minutes before. The chairman of the board, a tough and no-nonsense woman named Isabella, wasted no time. She called for security to escort Victor out. He was screaming, "I built this company. You can't do this." But Isabella just looked at him coldly and said, "You're fired." After Victor was removed, I thought I was done for. I expected to be fired for accessing the files without permission. But Isabella saw my value. She realized that I had uncovered a scheme that professional auditors had missed. "Minnie," she said, "we're creating a new position for you, Internal Audit Supervisor. You'll report directly to me and the board. And we've recovered the money, and with interest, we're going to pay the bonuses to the team." I walked out of Isabella's office, feeling like I was floating on air. I went back to the bullpen and held up the envelope full of checks. "He told us to be grateful for our jobs," I said, my voice echoing through the room. "Well, I think we should be grateful he was so greedy, or we wouldn't have this." I handed the checks out one by one. Leo broke down in tears when he saw the amount in his check. It was more than the promised $8,000. It included interest and a hardship bonus. The office was filled with cheers, hugs, and cries of relief. A few weeks later, I got a notification on my phone. The Malibu mansion was sold for $2.5 million. The money that Victor had stolen to build his dream home was now helping us build our futures. We were finally free from the shadow of his greed. And those 6 words, "Be grateful you have a job," turned into the motivation that changed everything. Thank you so much for listening. If you've ever stood up against injustice at work, please share your story in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where the bad guys get what they deserve.